Imagine losing $500 when your entire net worth is exactly $1,000. That hurts. Now, imagine losing $500,000 when you have $10 million in the bank. Common sense suggests the millionaire barely feels the sting, while the $1,000 earner is left completely devastated. Standard economic theory backs up this assumption. The textbook math says as your total wealth grows, your capacity for financial risk scales right along with it. The richer you are, the more you can afford to lose, so the larger the gambles you can safely take. But in typical wealth ranges, this accepted logic falls apart. When you look closely at how real people interact with their growing net worth, the rational choice is actually the opposite. As wealth goes up, risk-taking behavior should sharply decline. To see why taking a gamble becomes so dangerous for the wealthy, we have to look past the raw math and look at how people actually value money on a psychological level. What we find is that a dollar is never a fixed absolute unit. The value of your money shifts as you accumulate it, creating a paradox that dictates a completely different set of rules for investing. This graph charts the real-world impact of money against total wealth. Notice the massive vertical spike right at the beginning. That first $10,000 you earn moves you from worrying about basic survival to having a baseline of security. But watch what happens as wealth grows. The line flattens out. Your second $10,000, and even your 100th, doesn't change your daily reality nearly as much because your basic needs are already met. Once that floor is set, upgrading your lifestyle requires exponentially more cash. Moving from a coach seat to first class might cost twice as much. But moving from first class to flying private costs 10 times more. The financial leap to reach that next tier of luxury is so steep that putting your existing comfortable lifestyle in jeopardy just to try and grasp it is statistically irrational. We can see this asymmetry clearly in this chart comparing psychological responses. If you start with a $2 million baseline, gaining an extra million registers as a small passing bump in joy. But losing $1 million in the other direction registers as a massive, disproportionate spike in pain. The minor thrill of buying a slightly nicer car or taking a fancier vacation is entirely eclipsed by the pain of having to step backward down the lifestyle ladder you worked so hard to climb. The human psychological defense mechanism against losing a comfortable lifestyle naturally overrides the desire for extreme wealth accumulation. Beyond psychology, there is a cold mathematical reality that forces wealthy investors to hit the brakes: the sheer amount of time required to replace lost capital. This timeline visualizes the speed of recovery. On top, we see a complete wipeout of a $1,000 portfolio. Because this amount is small relative to a typical salary, standard savings habits can refill this deficit in a matter of weeks. Now look at the bottom timeline. A 20% market correction on a $5 million portfolio results in a sheer loss of $1 million. Even if you aggressively save $50,000 a year and earn a steady 5% return, it will take 14 years of compounding just to get back to zero. When your total wealth heavily outpaces your annual earning power, your portfolio becomes nearly impossible to replenish through labor alone. Time becomes the enemy, making significant risk-taking a mathematical danger to your future. These psychological and mathematical realities eventually lead to a transition point known as the risk squeeze. This diagram illustrates how a person's risk tolerance is compressed by three main forces that often peak in middle age. As your wealth accumulates, your biological age increases, and your family liabilities, like children and aging parents, mount, they push firmly inward. The sheer pressure of these forces requires a definitive shift. You can no longer rely on aggressive accumulation tactics when you have a family to support and fewer years left in your career. Investing is not a perpetual arcade game where the objective is to chase a higher score until you run out of time. It is a tool used to secure and maintain a baseline of lasting contentment. The indicator of real financial success is the self-awareness to recognize when you've reached that baseline, knowing exactly when your current wealth supports the lifestyle you actually want. Once you have reached that point, the logic changes. When you have won the financial game, the only rational move is to stop playing to win and start playing to not lose.